Hello, this is Developmental Psychology, and we're talking about middle childhood. This is part 3. So, hope you're well. We'll start off talking about what we know about gay and lesbian families in terms of families and children. Okay? This is really about 6.5 million families have same-sex parents with children. That's not the total number of families that are two people who are married that do not yet have children. So the studies find that children develop similarly physically and mentally to those of heterosexual parents, and that children exhibit no impact on the adopted children's sexual orientation. So because homosexuality is predominantly, it looks like, genetic, biological, in some ways biological, then you have a percentage that is perhaps slightly upticked in, the data is not clear, slightly upticked in when two parents are of the same gender. But there is no impact on gender stereotype behavior. They are equally emotionally well developed, and some studies have shown they are somewhat more liberal and somewhat more inclusive in their view of the world and people. No impact on peer relationships, and no differences in romantic relationships and sexual behaviors as they get older. Okay. There is a very good video that shows a gentleman named Zach Walls, who at the time of this video was a student at 19 years old at the University of Iowa. He is now a member of the state Senate, I think, in Iowa. He was raised by two women, and he gives an impassioned speech to the Iowa committee that is hearing from citizens as to the possibility of changing the amendment to the Constitution of Iowa to permit same-sex marriage, and it turns out that Iowa was the first state in the union that did that. Iowans are extraordinarily independent. I mean, if Iowa folks ain't nothing like them. They are so independent. They're so independent, they don't like anybody telling anybody what to do. That's I appreciate that. So let's talk about parenting styles. We have talked about this before, and you may know something about this. So we have three basic patterns. This is just one way to look at parenting, okay? Three basic patterns: authoritarian parenting, permissive parenting, and authoritative parenting. In authoritarian parenting, which is not a good style with good outcomes for children, we see low warmth and very strict discipline, including perhaps physical discipline, which is not a good way to discipline. That's not really teaching them anything, which is what discipline really is. Discipline is teaching problem solving. They expect extraordinarily high maturity, and the communication to children is what they give, not the other way around. We have permissive parenting, which is at the other end of the spectrum: high warmth, low or rare discipline, low expectations for maturity, and low discussion to a child, but lots of discussion from the child to the parent. Then we come to the third one, which is authoritative parents. This is the one we really want to try and get to. I wish they'd change the names of these, but okay. High warmth, moderate appropriate discipline, moderate appropriate expectations for maturity, and high communications both to and from parents to children and children to parents. Okay? So what we want is parental warmth, high expectations, and positive discipline. All of that leads to high self-esteem and productivity and self-care that's good among children. Self-esteem goes up. So we want parents, in addition, to model delayed gratification and impulse control. We want the kids to see parents doing that. So if you're thinking about buying something, let them hear your discussion about that. They're listening. Sure they are. As long as they're in that vicinity, they'll hear you. So, well, honey, I was thinking about buying, trading in this car and buying a new one, and then you have a conversation about what it would cost, and then what kind of impact it would have on the finances to do that, and then deciding whether you will or won't do it, and deciding that you won't sometimes. I think that's a great way to model impulse control. You also, as a good parent, can teach appropriate social skills, and empathy can be improved, and appropriate emotional expression. All of that's great stuff. Yeah, it takes time though, doesn't it? A lot of effort. The rewards are amazing, however. So, what's the key for all this? We're going through this life stage. What do we get out of this? Well, what we want to have is a child who has industry, which is the eagerness to learn new skills and to do meaningful work, which in itself is intrinsically motivating. If you do something that you think has meaning in life to other people, to the world, in addition to yourself, then you're much less likely to burn out. This is in itself very motivating. You want to go to work, you want to produce, you want to do a good job, whatever that is. Industry gives rise to what we call competence, and competence is using your free will and intelligence to complete tasks and get things done. Yeah, doing good work. Now, if industry and competence are not products of this age stage, if they are not acquired, then inferiority can develop. And that's the opposite. That's a sense of incompetence, a sense on failure built on things like lack of skill or a lot of negative evaluation by others. So where does this really come from? Well, it can originate from comparing yourself to others and finding yourself wanting and lacking. The accepted skills of a society versus what yours are. Parental disinterest, discouragement, overcriticalness. Boy, all that in one way or another, even just some of that, can paralyze a child and can prevent them from eventually doing and feeling good about doing productive, meaningful work, and even finding meaningful work. We want education to be of high quality. We want education to teach skill and knowledge about things like citizenship and study habits and codes of conduct and critical thinking. We want all of that in good education. Is that what education always provides? No. So most of this we would think of as school stuff, but it needs also to be reinforced at home, especially curiosity, which often gets stamped out by schools and traditional education. We want creativity. We want them to be curious to acquire knowledge about how the world works. Okay? We want them to be really interested in and liking being things like reading and writing and studying. And how do you do that? You read to them. You talk about the natural world. You go for nature walks and talk about the world around you. And maybe as parents, you need a little bit of help with that. But you can do that. It's all great stuff. Okay? So that's the end of middle adulthood. It's a short video, about 8.5 minutes. And I hope you like this section. Talk to you about adolescence next.